With yesterday's extra inning win, your Rangers climbed to within 4.5 games of the AL West Division lead. Today, Texas looks to continue that rise up the standings as they send their most consistent starter to the mound, Colby Lewis. He will take on Felix Hernandez and the Seattle Mariners. That's coming up next on Fox Sports Southwest. Texas Rangers baseball is presented by AT&T UVerse TV. Well, it is another gorgeous afternoon here in the Emerald City, Seattle, Washington, Safeco Field, just south of downtown. The site. The Rangers look to make it 2 out of 3 as they take on the Seattle Mariners. And welcome in, everyone, along with Tom Greaves, Steve Busby. Glad you could spend part of your Sunday with us. The Rangers looking to make it another series win, and they will send Colby Lewis out to the mound. They'll also be facing a very familiar foe. And Tom, Felix Hernandez has not fared well against the Rangers.
No, I think if you asked him who the toughest team for him to face is, he'd probably say the Rangers. Now, the numbers are skewed a little bit because we faced him 5 or 6 times a year, it seems like, for the last 8 or 9 years. But against the Rangers since 2011, got a decent ERA around 4, higher than his normal ERA, but a 4-9 record. He's lost to the Rangers 21 times. That's the most losses to the Rangers by any opposing pitcher. So he pitches against the Rangers a lot. He's had some beautiful games against the Rangers. But overall, I'm pretty sure he would say this is a very tough opponent for him.
And he is facing a newly invigorated Texas Ranger team that has won 8 of their last 10 ball games, and it should be a great afternoon here in Seattle. We'll come back with more from Safeco Field in Seattle. Texas Rangers and the Seattle Mariners coming up next on Fox Sports Southwest. Your Texas Ford dealers. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer to kick off the summer right. Ford is the best in Texas. By AT&T UVerse TV. UVerse has more live TV channels on the go than cable. And by Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. A bright, sunshiny afternoon here in the great Northwest. Rangers and Mariners in the rubber game of this three-game set. Before we get things underway, let's set it down and check in with Emily Jones.
Well, Buzz, as you well know, the Rangers going for the series win in Seattle, looking to start this road trip off right with a 2-1 record. A win will get it done here today. And Prince Fielder says it's been fun to watch this team come together over the last couple weeks.
I think we're playing solid baseball. I mean, playing all the way through, all 9 innings or whatever it takes. So usually whenever you just play solid baseball, you usually end up winning.
Last night, a prime example of that, putting up an 8 spot in the 11th inning to take the middle game of this 3-game series. It is the finale here on Fox Sports Southwest from Safeco Field. We've got the first pitch coming up in just a bit, but first, this quick timeout.
Getting set to play the finale of this 3-game series, and Tom's going to tell you about the Southwest Airlines next spring plan.
Well, Delano DeShields will lead off for the Rangers. He had 3 hits yesterday. That snapped an 0-for-11 streak. Shin-Soo Choo bats second. .340 average in 15 games since the All-Star break for Shin-Soo. Prince Fielder is third. Adrian Beltre bats fourth. Mitch Moreland hitting .385 with 7 walks in his last 13 games. Josh Hamilton is sixth. Elvis Andrus is seventh. Rougned Odor, last 7 games, has him with a .452 average. He's gotten hot this season. Average now is .278, the highest it's been all year. And Bobby Wilson, 5-for-11 with 5 RBIs in 3 starts for the Rangers, will bat ninth.
Well, that is Jeff Bannister's lineup for this afternoon. That will be facing Felix Hernandez. King Felix out there, tied for second in the American League with 13 wins. He's 13-6. 22 starts prior to today, and Ranger hitters will try to be aggressive against Hernandez. The best way to go after Felix when he is being aggressive is to fight fire with fire. Ranger hitters will try and do that, and you just hope that his command of all of his pitches isn't as sharp as it can be, because when he is on, most people have trouble with him, and that includes most Ranger hitters. So we'll see how that unfolds here this afternoon. We'll take a look at the defense behind Hernandez here this afternoon at Safeco Field. It's a good defense with Cruz, Marte, and Smith right, center, and left. No errors in their last 6 ball games for Seattle. They are 4th in the American League in overall fielding percentage. Montero, Cano, Miller, and Seager around the infield. Mike Zunino is catching for Felix Hernandez. And the Kings Court out in left field. The Kings Court has expanded by a couple of sections over the last couple of years. Used to be just one section tucked away there in the corner, but Felix Hernandez gaining popularity year by year, almost start by start. And his fan club has gotten large as Delino DeShields takes strike one. We are underway here this afternoon. Rangers come in at 55 and 54. One game over 500, and they are 4.5 games behind the division leading Houston Astros. They're 3 games behind the Angels in the both the Western Division and the wild card race. Delino fouls the next pitch back. It's 1-2. Rangers this year against Seattle snapped a 6-game losing streak yesterday. That 11-3 11-inning win. Rangers 2-3 here at Safeco Field this year. 1-2 pitch to DeShields. Now 2-2. Thousands of umpires on hand here this afternoon, groaning, but that pitch just off the plate. Felix Hernandez, not yet 30 years of age. Line drive, right center field. Cruz in a hurry, coming on dive, and makes the catch. Well, Nelson Cruz playing right field and took kind of an indirect route to that ball, but came up with a very nice play diving at the end.
Yeah, the ball just seemed to hang up a little bit longer than it looked like it would off the bat. Off the bat, it looked like a little Texas leaguer, but it hung up there. And one thing we've always seen with Nelly as a Ranger, he's not afraid to go all out and dive for a ball head first. And he was able to come up with that play.
Like his glasses a little bit worse for wear after that dive at the ball. So one big out behind Felix Hernandez. Next up will be Shin-Soo Choo. Choo steps to the plate hitting at .239, but he has been the second hottest hitter on the Ranger staff since the All-Star break. He is trailing only Rougned Odor, and he takes ball 1 outside. Choo, since the All-Star break, is hitting .340. Odor at .353. Those two have provided some pretty good offense. And there's the strike, even the count. Choo has hit safely in all 14 of his starts since the All-Star break. He had a 7-game hitting streak snapped last Wednesday. Had a pitch hitting assignment and took an over in that one. 2 upper out to Cano. That is the second out. Sound like Choo might have cracked his bat on that one. And with 2 away, here comes Prince Fielder. Interesting matchup for Prince Fielder against Felix Hernandez. Fielder is 0 for 17 over the years against Hernandez. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look, but I can't think of another pitcher that has been able to dominate Prince the way that Hernandez has. It could be one of those statistical anomalies, or maybe every time that Prince has faced him, Felix has had his best stuff. And in that case, it's bad timing. Good breaking ball to the back door.
So Felix's last couple of starts, he's given up 23 hits in 13 innings. 11 runs in 13 innings, 7.44 ERA. So he's given up a lot of hits over his last couple of starts. Doesn't look like he gave up those hits with the kind of stuff he's throwing in the first inning.
No.
Looks a little bit better than a 7.44 ERA so far.
Well, those were both National League teams, weren't they?
I didn't write down the teams. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Arizona and Colorado.
One was on the road.
Yeah, Colorado was in Coors Field, which and there was some speculation that Felix, for whatever reason, just has not pitched well against National League teams. 1-2 pitch here. That's fouled out of play.
Well, I think one thing, whatever he's got in the tank, the Rangers will get it, because he's pumped up every time he faces the Rangers. The stats that we talked about in the open, where You can easily see that the Rangers have been a tough opponent for him. He knows those stats. He's got the little rivalry with Adrian Beltre. So whatever he's got to bring, he's bringing all of it against the Rangers.
Off the fist into right center field, and that is the end of that over. Nice job by Prince Fielder, shooting it right by Robinson Cano, 2-out single.
Yeah, pretty good sign, too, because that was a fastball at 94, 95 miles an hour. Came back toward the inside part of the plate. And Prince hit it solidly into right center field.
Well, Fielder, the first Ranger base runner of the afternoon with a 2-out single here in the first. Adrian Beltre now will come up to face his old teammate and his buddy. That rivalry, though, has cooled down on the field. And Beltre, a drive to deep left field. Going back is Smith and makes the catch right at the wall. And Felix Hernandez giving it to Adrian Beltre down at first base. Well, the rivalry is back in full force. One hit for the Rangers, scoreless after a half inning. Faithful, some heart palpitations with his long fly. Tom's going to tell you now about the Mariners starting lineup.
Mariners will lead off with Ketel Marte playing center field today. Kyle Seager's batting second. Nelson Cruz hits third, followed by Robinson Cano. Robinson Cano in his last 44 games hitting .311 with 10 of his 12 home runs. Seth Smith is batting fifth. Jesus Montero will hit sixth. Mark Trumbo, .337 in his last 28 games, has his average up now to .246. Brad Miller will hit eighth, and Mike Zunino is the catcher batting ninth.
And that's Lloyd McClendon's lineup that will face the 36-year-old right-hander Colby Lewis. Colby looking for his 13th win of the year, and the first pitch is low and inside. Colby on a nice roll, and he's had good success here for the most part at Safeco Field against these Mariners. Hoping to have the same kind of command of the fastball and slider that he's had in winning 4 straight starts. He has been extremely good and extremely consistent. And Marte lifts a pop fly into shallow center. On comes Delino to Shields. They're in plenty of time for out number 1. Well, Marte retired. Now Kyle Seager coming up. And we'll take a look at the rest of the Ranger defense delivered to you by the New Braunfels Convention and Visitors Bureau. Outfield of Chu to Shields and Hamilton, right, center, and left. And Rangers come in 14th in the American League. And this is kind of a holdover from getting off to a terrible start defensively. Rangers have been much better of late, but they're still, with that .980 percentage, second most errors to the Oakland A's in the American League. Normal defense for the Rangers with Moreland, Odor, Andrews, and Beltre, with Bobby Wilson catching. Kyle Seager, a .268 average, 16 home runs, 44 driven in. Colby has not really had a good answer for Seager. most of the times that they have matched up. Seager hitting .435 against Colby. 10 for 23 with 2 home runs against the Ranger right-hander. 1-1 pitch. A ball and 2 strikes. That slider getting in off the plate to Seager. Mariners are in 4th place in the American League West. They are 9.5 games off the pace. Been kind of floundering around 500 for the better part of a month and a half now. 51 and 69 games under 500. And having problems here at home. They're just 23 and 32 at Safeco Field. 1-2 pitch. Judging from the past results the Mariners have had here at home, and their pitching has been very solid. They always gave teams a real tough time here. Seager, a little looper out past the infield, and Elvis out there. About 10 steps into the outfield grass, makes the catch for out number 2. Their pitching this year has been part of the problem. The Mariners starting rotation, without Iwakuma in it early, relied entirely on Felix Hernandez. It wasn't as solid. Guys were not going as deeply into ball games, and that ran their bullpen out of gas. The bullpen has suffered mightily. So a team that usually is based on solid pitching, especially in this ballpark, has not had that going for it. The offense has been very reliant on the home run to produce runs. And this, of course, not a great ballpark if you want to hit a lot of home runs. Unless, of course, you happen to be Nelly Cruz, who gets a slider on the first pitch, a swinging strike 1.
Yeah, that was a well-placed slider. And you could tell by the swing Nelly took, he was looking for a fastball to hit out of the ballpark.
Yeah, he got a fastball there, and it was just off the outside edge. 1 ball, 1 strike. Cruz with an 18-game hitting streak going, a .425 average over those 18 games. 32 home runs, 68 driven in. Colby trying to slap some paint on that outside corner and couldn't quite get the call. Home plate umpire this afternoon, Lance Barrett. Cruz second in home runs to Mike Trout, who has 33. A little tapper down the third baseline. It's going to roll into foul ground, and Beltre makes sure it stays there. Well, the count evens at 2-2. We told you throughout this series that when Cruz and Cano flip-flopped in the order, Cruz was hitting cleanup for the first half of the season, but he and Cano changed orders where Cruz went to third, Cano went to fourth. Nelly had been hot. He's been hot the entire season, but Robinson Cano got hot. And boy, you get those two guys back to back, and you set up situations like the Rangers faced yesterday in the 10th inning where you had to walk 2 up. You go through a lineup before a series starts, and usually every game too, depending on the starting pitcher, and say, okay, this guy will not be allowed to beat us in a game situation. Well, you've got Cano there in your picture, and Cruz hitting back to back. They're both capable of hurting you at any given time, and Rangers got in that situation yesterday in the 10th inning, decided to intentionally walk both of them to load the bases. Fastball called, strike 3. Cruz got caught leaning out over the plate, and boy, Colby Lewis just painting the inside corner. 1-2-3 first inning, and Colby is sharp in the early going. Mariners gone. We played one in Seattle. No score. see yourself in an upcoming broadcast. That's all brought to you by the good folks at T-Mobile. We'll have today's selection a little bit later on. A lot of Ranger fans up here in the Northwest. A lot of Ranger fans from the Metroplex, as a matter of fact, making the trip up here for the weekend. Nice to see everybody around downtown Seattle and out here at Safeco Field. Scoreless ball game. Rangers with the only base runner. That was a Prince Fielder 2-out single in the first. So Mitch Moreland will lead off the second against Felix Hernandez. Mitch on a pretty good roll himself of late. A 294 average. That's his highest in just about a month. Mitch has reached safely in his last 10 starts. And he's also on a pretty good roll of multiple hit games. He has 3 of them in a row, and 4 out of the last 5 have gone for multiple hits.
And Mitch had a good game yesterday. Mike Napoli started the game at first base, but Mitch came in and pinch hit, got a base hit. Then in the key 8-run rally in the 11th inning, he had a base hit against a left-hander with 2 strikes. Stroked the ball up the middle to help get that rally started. Listening to Mike Napoli talk down in the clubhouse before the ball game. Knapp was talking about how much he'll miss Boston. He loved it there, but if he had to be traded, how much he'll like playing here in Texas. Said he was very understanding of his role, which is primarily to play against left-handed pitching. Recognized that Mitch is doing a great job, and between the two of them, if Knapp is playing against left-handed pitchers, that'd be a great combination.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
And on the days, we've talked about this too, on the days when Knapp doesn't start, it's nice having that right-handed hitter coming off the bench.
2-2 to Moreland. Now 3-2. Good eyeballing.
The other thing Knapp said, he got off to a terrible start this year in Boston. He said he was in a slump for about a couple of months and just couldn't get out of it. Tried everything. And then finally, about right before the All-Star break, started to click with him, slowed things down a little bit. Feels like he's swinging the bat just the way he wants to right now.
Breaking ball got Moreland swinging. It's Hernandez with his first strikeout of the afternoon, 1 gone, and Josh Hamilton coming up.
Felix goes to his curveball. He's got a lot of different weapons, a lot of different ways he can get hitters out. He's got the good fastball, generally a 2-seam fastball with good movement. Different types of breaking balls. That looked like a hard overhand curveball that got Mitch.
Josh Hamilton had the go-ahead base hit in that 11th inning. Drove in the first run of the 8 that the Rangers scored. Josh up to 258 now, 19 RBI. He has not fared very well against Hernandez, as those numbers would tell you. Just a 169 career average. Fouls off that curveball. 1 ball and 1 strike. Hamilton, a modest 3-game hitting streak. 462 average going. And most importantly, he's driven in 3 runs in those 3 games. 2-1. Rangers have kind of caught fire of late when Hamilton drives in a run. Club's 8-1 in the last 9 ball games in which he's had an RBI. Josh's eyes kind of lit up on that high changeup. Looked hittable until he swung at it. Said, no, guess not. 2-2 pitch.
Well, the differential on his changeup and his fastball sometimes is only 3 or 4 miles an hour, maybe 5. But boy, the way the hitters swing at the changeup, it might as well be 10 or 11. Because even at 89 miles an hour, he gets a lot of swings where the batter's way out in front of it.
Yeah.
I guess that must have something to do with his delivery, his deception.
Well, I don't know.
Whatever it is, it's tough to hit.
Hung a curveball on 3-2, and Hamilton fouls it off. We'll try it again. Yeah, guys that have I'm not going to say a wild motion, but a fairly complicated motion like Felix Hernandez, you probably see a lot of things that have nothing to do with him throwing the ball. Elbows and kneecaps. And I would imagine as a hitter, it's hard to zero in on his release point. This one tapped out to Cano. And Hamilton retired, 2 gone. Next will be Elvis Andrus. Felix doesn't usually have a whole lot of trouble with right-handed hitters, much less so than with left-handers. But Elvis, one of the guys that has given him some problems over the years. Career 300 hitter and 80 at-bats against Felix Hernandez. It seems like Elvis, and go back to guys like David Price and James Shields and Jared Weaver. A lot of the good pitchers in the league, Elvis has great numbers against. For whatever reason, he just seems to be able to handle the good pitchers more so than a lot of other people. And he's been handling a lot of pitching lately at 293 average over 10 ball games. 1 ball and 1 strike. The appeal down at first, and no swing down there, said the crew chief Dale Scott. Hernandez getting ready to throw his 30th pitch. And this is outside with it. Well, the Rangers, as we mentioned, turning things around of late. They have won 8 of their last 10. Got their road record up to 32-25. They have the highest winning percentage on the road in the American League and 3rd best in the majors. A rocket off the glove of Seager out into left field. Elvis scorched one down there that kind of took a little hop. And this is going to be a base hit for Elvis. So he continues to get his base hits against Felix Hernandez.
Yeah, you ripped that ball to 3rd base. I guess they figure if Seager can't field it, it must be a base hit. Seager's a very good defensive player. That's an extremely hard hit ball. It took a little bit of a hop on him as well. And another ball hit hard left to second base by Elvis. Continues to do that.
Well, the second Ranger base hit, they both come with 2 outs. 1 on, 2 out. Rougned Odor takes a strike at the knees. The numbers for Odor, a 278 average.
From a long way from 144.
Exactly. I continue to marvel at how much work he's had to put in, to how much success he's had to have to get that average up to where it is now. Takes another strike at the knees.
Yeah, I think when he was at 144 and then spent some time in the minor leagues, I think if you targeted 278 by the end of the year, you would have been feeling like you might be a little bit overly optimistic being able to reach 278. But he's done it quickly.
Down to the count here, no balls, 2 strikes. To left field, slicing into the corner. It is a fair ball right off the chalk. Elvis around 3rd will motor across home plate. And Rougned Odor, an opposite field RBI double, puts the Rangers on top 1-0.
It's just been amazing how well he has played, how well he has hit since he went to the minor leagues. He's been one of the best players in the league since that time. That's really not an exaggeration. Hitting about 340 or 350 since that time, hitting tough pitchers. He takes 2 strikes against Hernandez, gets behind in the count to a guy that's extremely tough to hit even if you're ahead in the count, and then doubles right down the line. Nice 2-out rally to get the Rangers started here in the 2nd inning. The other thing is, he went to the minor leagues. He's come back. He's played better defense too. Whatever his assignment was, he aced every bit of it.
Bobby Wilson is swinging strike 1. Let's check in with Emily Jones.
Well, guys, right when Rugi got sent down, I sent him a text message like the day after, and just trying to offer some encouragement. Hang in there, keep your head up. And he immediately texted me back and he said, "Don't worry, I will be back and soon." And I thought, well, what a great attitude to have. And I think that's what's been most amazing is the way he's handled himself off the field, the confidence that he has, and the way he didn't let that define his season or who he was. And that's, to me, has been a pretty impressive thing.
No doubt, huh?
He's quite a young man. going to be a mainstay of the Rangers for quite a while. He has a very bright future. Bobby Wilson up there, and he takes a check swing at that breaking ball just off the plate. 2 balls and a strike. Bobby, part of that two-headed monster the Rangers have now catching. He and Chris Jimenez really doing a terrific job. In his 3 starts, Wilson has hit .455 with 5 RBI. He's had at least 1 hit and 1 RBI in each of his starts. Chris Jimenez hitting almost 400 in his 6 starts. 2-1 the count. Felix, a little toss to first, that'll do it. But with 2 outs, the Rangers get a pair of hits. Rougned Odor driving home Elvis Andrus. After 1.5, Rangers 1 and the Mariners nothing. Texas Ford dealers. Visit your local Texas Ford dealer to kick off the summer right. Ford is the best in Texas. Now the Rangers out to a quick 1-0 lead as we head to the bottom of the 2nd inning. Middle third of the Mariner order to face Colby Lewis. It begins with Robinson Cano, who takes ball 1. Cano, a .268 average overall, a dozen home runs, and 50 RBI. 10 of those 12 home runs have come in the last 30 games or so for Cano. Lewis with a 2-0 pitch. He rolled over on it. Mitch Moreland near the bag. 1 gone. Well, 4 up, 4 down for Colby. Next will be Seth Smith. Smith coming to the plate, a .252 hitter. 9 home runs, 29 driven in. He's had 7 at-bats against Colby Lewis in his career, and Smith yet to get aboard. Colby's first pitch to him. Last 7 ball games, Smith not a whole lot of luck, just 1 for 16. 5 strikeouts, the streak that he is in. And a broken bat roller out to Odor.
Well, same thing Cano did.
Yeah.
85 miles an hour out in front of it, off the end of the bat. A little dinky roller, easy out.
2 gone. Jesus Montero coming up. Quick reminder that fans attending the game on Friday, August 14th against the Tampa Bay Rays will enjoy a special post-game fireworks show set to Star Wars music and sponsored by Takis. And there will also be some special appearances by Star Wars characters out on the concourse. Visit TexasRangers.com and use the coupon code FIREWORKS to get $14 upper reserve tickets. Jesus Montero getting the start again this afternoon at first base. Montero recently recalled from AAA Tacoma. Little looper out to Elvis right behind Beltre. And Elvis takes care of it.
There's some weakly hit balls in this game so far.
A couple of balls off the end of the bat. The jam shot, 3 up, 3 down. 1-0 Rangers on to the third. To the Rangers equipment drive. All you have to do is drop off your new and gently used baseball and softball equipment at various locations in North Texas between August 1st and August 15th to benefit the Texas Rangers Baseball Foundation RBI programs in North Texas. Visit TexasRangers.com/equipment for more information. Now the Rangers here in the third go back to the top of the order. Delino DeShields made a line drive to right his first time up for an out. Nice diving catch by Nelly Cruz out there. Takes the next pitch outside. 1 ball and 1 strike. Rangers a run on 3 base hits. And all 3 hits have come with 2 outs. Delino a .266 average. He had a 3-hit game yesterday. 1-2. DeShields in his 26th consecutive leadoff appearance for the Rangers. And he's gone on strikes here as Felix Hernandez brings up his second punch-out. Now before Shin-Soo Choo steps in, let's take time to send it back to Dana Larson for a Mazda game break. All right, Danny, thank you. Boy, how hot are the Toronto Blue Jays?
8 straight.
Goodness. Chu rips one into right for a base hit. Shin-Soo got a breaking ball that he might have been guessing. I don't know, because he sure went up there hitting like he was guessing it right. And that is a 1-out single for Chu. He is 1 for 2 and brings up Prince Fielder.
Hey, he got a pretty good breaking ball to hit. Slow speed, but good hitter's location. Curved ball right in the middle of the plate. Good swing in the bats a little bit.
Yep.
Felix Hernandez commented about the Rangers saying they're tough to pitch against because they foul so many pitches off. And He's talking about that game against Iwakuma. It just seemed like they fouled balls off all day long.
Yeah.
Got his pitch coming up there a little bit because he was throwing a great game, throwing a lot of strikes, and did a lot of it yesterday too.
Prince had a base hit his first time up. Now 1 for 18 in his career against Felix Hernandez. There's that changeup off the outside edge. And Felix, a questioning look into home plate umpire Lance Barrett. And our Fox tracker showing you that was just off the outer edge. Not by much, but a couple of hairs is enough. And Cano in to say something to Felix Hernandez. Felix has been known in the past to maybe get a little overly emotional on the mound. Not often, but every once in a while you see him kind of implode. 3 balls, no strikes. No fielder hitting third in the order. Adrian Beltre getting ready to face his former teammate. Hernandez with a 3-0 pitch. A rip by the first baseman into right field. Chu around second, will motor to third. And on 3-0, Prince Fielder shot one right by Jesus Montero at first. His second hit of the afternoon.
Well, first time up, Prince got a 95-mile-an-hour fastball inside part of the plate and hit it solidly to right center field. This 3-0 pitch, not sure whether Felix figured he would swing 3-0 or not, but the pitch is right down the middle. And Prince ripped it hard past Montero at first base for first and third for the Rangers, with a chance for Beltre to pick up another run right here.
And Adrian almost picked up 2 in the first inning when he faced Hernandez for the first time. Hit a long line drive right to the wall in left field, and Seth Smith went up against the padding to make the catch. So Adrian 0 for 1, but it was a very loud out. Got Chu at third, Fielder at first, just 1 out here in the Ranger third. That's by and all the way to the backstop. Chu will score on the wild pitch. Down to second goes Fielder, and the Rangers take a 2-0 lead. Now, Felix Hernandez may be doing a little bit of that imploding that we mentioned a moment ago. You don't often see him bury one like that. Looks like he might have tried to overthrow it.
Yeah, I guess the other thing, Buzz, is usually when he or a Mariner pitcher does, Zunino's able to block it. That time Zunino thought the ball was going to come up, lifted up, and the ball went underneath his glove. I've seen Zunino quite a bit over the last couple of years, and he's very good at blocking. Has been in our games very good at blocking balls. That one just got by him.
And the next one, almost an identical ball.
Yeah.
Able to block that one. 2-1 the count to Beltre. Rangers with a 2-0 lead. You got Fielder out at second base now. And Felix Hernandez trying to get a grip on things. 3 balls and a strike. And if you're the Rangers now, this is really where you want to take advantage of Felix Hernandez in the early going. You have a lead against him. You really want to, if you can, put your foot down on him. Preferably get him out of the ballgame. It would be the best thing.
Yep.
3-1 the count. Hard hit ball. Oh, it came up. Almost killed Miller. And he's able to regain the handle on the ball and throw out Beltre. Goodness. That came up almost head high. Hit him right at the top of the chest, it looked like. He is a very fortunate shortstop.
Yeah, that last bounce really came up on him, and unfortunate to get hit by the ball, and then a little bit fortunate that the ball stayed right in front of him, and he was able to pick it up, fire to first, and just nip Adrian going in toward first base.
Two outs. Here's Mitch Moreland, who struck out the first time that he faced Hernandez. And that's back-to-back pitches now for the strikeout and the first strike here. That he's had that back foot breaking ball from Felix. Mitch at 294 with the average. Trying to pick up fielder from second base. 1-1. Go back to the 6th of June, and you saw the 2 out runners in scoring position figure, but just overall runners in scoring position since the middle of June. There's a shot backhanded by Cano. I'm going to tell you that Moreland had been a 375 hitter, almost added to that, but Cano picked him clean. Side retired, but the Rangers put another on the board. They get a run on 2 hits and leave one after 2.5. Rangers 2, Mariners nothing. Will be treated to a Medical Center Arlington Adrian Beltre bobblehead. Come on out and watch the Rangers take on the Tampa Bay Rays and get your collectible bobblehead at the same time. Visit TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS to get your tickets. Now, Colby Lewis staked to a 2-0 lead now as he goes to work in the 3rd inning. Mark Trumbo, the DH for the Mariners this afternoon, leading things off. Colby pouring in that strike to even the count. Trumbo, a 246 average with 4 home runs and 16 driven in as a member of the Mariners this year. Came over to Seattle from the Arizona Diamondbacks back in June. Trumbo, also a former Angel. A lot of experience against the Rangers, and he pops a pitch up. Bobby Wilson off with the mask, shading his eyes with his glove, and the ball drops behind him. Colby's throw to second is not there in time. Well, a high sky here in Seattle, and Bobby Wilson looked like he had it under control, never did get rid of his mask.
Yeah, I was just thinking the fact that he had his mask in his hand, he's just saying, I got this covered.
Yeah.
Generally, the catcher will throw his mask away. He's holding his mask in his right hand and then wasn't able to catch the ball.
That pop-up was way up there, too, and that's maybe the toughest play for a catcher out in front of home plate. You know, if it's behind home plate, at least the catcher has a little angle on it, but straight up like that, pretty tough. So that's going to be a 2-base error on Bobby Wilson to allow Trumbo to get to second. And now the bunt down by Brad Miller. Sacrifice goes 1-3 with Trumbo moving on to third.
And Miller in that situation, he'll get a sacrifice, but I don't think he was sacrifice bunting. We've got Zunino coming up next, a guy that's a little bit prone to striking out. That's one of those, I think I'll try to bunt for a base hit. And if I get it, great. If I don't, I'll get a sacrifice.
Now, Zunino, 173 overall, but he's gone 3 for 10 against Colby Lewis. He's found Colby a little bit more to his liking. He has 3 home runs in those 3 hits.
Yeah, I could only remember one of the home runs, and it was a fastball right down the middle. You know, Zunino can hit a fastball if you get it up and out over the plate. I think if Colby can make his pitches here, tempt him with that slider down and away.
How about a pop-up?
That'll work.
Odor backing out. Chu calling him off. Shinsu makes the catch, gets the ball back in quickly. Certainly not deep enough for Trumbo to make an attempt to score. And that is a big out, number 2.
Well, it was a slider. It wasn't a swing and a miss slider, but it was a very good slider as far as what the result of it turned out to be. Zunino got the ball in the air to the outfield, but not far enough. A little pop up to Chu. And now maybe the Rangers can pitch around the second 2-base error to lead off an inning that they've seen in the last couple of days.
That's not a good habit to get into,
no.
But it worked out okay yesterday, and we'll see if it does today.
Sean Tolleson, we've shown that many times over the last couple of days with Sean Tolleson. Today, anyway, Sean Tolleson pitching out of that jam and late in the ball game. 2-base error, nobody on. He pitched out of it. Hopefully, Colby will be able to do that here in the 3rd inning.
Ketel Marte, switch hitting leadoff man, and he takes high and outside for ball 1. Marte had gotten the start at shortstop the first 2 games of this series, and now playing in center field today with Brad Miller doing the honors at short. Ripped into right. That's a base hit. In to score is Trumbo. Ketel Marte with his first major league RBI. Puts the Mariners on the board and cuts the Ranger lead in half. It's 2-1.
Nice swing by Marte right there. Looked like a breaking ball down and in. And he went down and took a nice swing and hit it hard into right field. A fastball down and in, I guess. Might even have been a strike.
Well, that is the first base hit of the afternoon against Colby Lewis. Marte with his first major league run driven in. He is aboard with 2 outs. And Kyle Seager, who popped out to shortstop. His first time, will step in. Seager, a .267 hitter. That's Colby. Deals strike 1. Seager of late been swinging the bat very well in 28 ball games. He's hit .306 with 4 home runs. He's hit safely in 24 of those 28 games. Colby jumps out in front of the count. No balls, 2 strikes. Kyle Seager, of course, we talk about it every time that the Rangers face him. He has just eaten Ranger pitching alive in his career. He's a .326 lifetime hitter against Texas. 74 games. He has driven in 46 runs. Nice stop by Bobby Wilson, who dropped down to both knees to take that slider in the dirt. Now 1 ball and 2 strikes to Seager. Marte, modest lead at first. Colby checks him. Tried the comeback fastball and left it inside too far. 2-2. Rangers have gotten a little better this year against Seager. Going into foul territory, Adrian Beltre fighting the sun and foul ground, makes the catch, stays with it very nicely to capture that towering pop-up. Side retired, unearned run scored by the Mariners. They get a run on a hit, an error, and leave one. And after 3, thanks to Adrian Beltre, the Rangers still lead it 2-1. Southwest Airlines. Book your low fare now at southwest.com. And by Mazda. In every car we make, you'll see why driving matters. Josh Hamilton leading off the Rangers' 4th inning. It's a towering fly ball to center. Marte waiting for it to come down out of the bright blue sky. Handles it, and 1 pitch, 1 away as Hamilton flies out. Next will be Elvis Andrus.
The Rangers have had some good at-bats against Felix. Beltre hit the smash at shortstop. Mitch hit a smash at second. And Josh was right on that last pitch. Just got underneath it and popped it up. Prince hit the ball hard. Chu hit the ball hard. Last 5 guys have all had good swings.
Elvis ripped one off the glove of Seager down at third base for a base hit in the 2nd and came around to score the first Ranger run as he takes a strike here. Elvis on fire of late. Over the last 24 ball games, he's hit .316. Chopper down to third. Seager has it. Easy play for out number 2. No, 2 up, 2 away. Rougned Odor now will step in. Odor has sliced an RBI double right off the chalk in the left field corner. Drove home Elvis with that first Ranger run. Odor extending his hitting streak. It's now 8 consecutive ball games. Average up over 280 to 281. Strike 1. Odor now 6 out of 10 in the 3 games here in Seattle. He's having a great trip. He's having a great return to the big leagues. 1 ball, 1 strike. He was called back from Round Rock on the 15th of June. Since then, he has hit 352 with 7 home runs and 29 RBI. Felix out in front again in the count, just as he was the first at bat against Rougned. Rougned then took him the other way for the double. Foul tip into the glove of Zunino. And Odor is saying they got me on the elbow. Jeff Bannister going out and talking with Lance Barrett, the home plate umpire. And the Rangers may have, that is a reviewable play if there's video evidence that the Rangers can see. Joey Probinski upstairs will take a look at all the replay angles that he has.
You should be able to see whether it hits the bat or not. No, well, it either hit his elbow or the end of the bat.
Yeah, I think it looked like it got his forearm. And they're gonna review this. So the answer from upstairs, Joey Probinski telling Steve Buechele on the phone, and Buechele, of course, relaying the information to Jeff Bannister. Yeah, go ahead and take a look at it.
The home plate umpire, all he did is hear it. Very difficult to see it. Sure didn't look like it hit the bat. And Brugge, I think, was shocked. He just assumed it hit him, and he was going to first.
I think you see it here hit the forearm, just above the elbow.
Yeah, sure looked like it.
Right there by the wristband.
Sure looked like it.
So, and Lance Barrett, like you said, Tom, all the umpire can do is listen.
Yeah.
You can't really see that effectively. So, Lance Barrett and Dale Scott. Dale Scott, the crew chief of this group, so they will get the headsets on and get in touch with Replay Command Center back in New York. And again, the call is a foul ball, a foul tip that Zunino caught. And now we get the ruling. It is a hit by pitch. So
good.
They got that right. They got it right quickly.
Finally got a call.
So Odor will trot on down to first. The hit batter will have him aboard. It gives Bobby Wilson a chance to bat here in the fourth inning. And Odor has made a habit of that this year, getting hit by the pitch. That's his 10th hit by pitch this year, Rougned Odor. So at first, still 2 outs. Bobby Wilson tapped back to the mound his first time up. Hernandez, a letter high set. He's just going to hold there to kind of freeze Odor at first base. I think with the number 9 hitter at the plate, you probably wouldn't send Odor. Kind of hope that Bobby Wilson would plug a gap somewhere with a double. You get Odor thrown out, then you got the number 9 hitter leading off next inning. One ball, no strikes. Hernandez gets that little breaking ball to catch the inside corner to even things up. Tony Beasley sending the signs over to Odor and to Bobby Wilson. Mentioned Wilson with an RBI and a base hit in each of the first 3 games. That hasn't happened very often in Ranger annals. Last Ranger to do that in his first 3 games with the club, Royce Clayton, back in 1998. Had a hit and an RBI in each of the first 3 games. Two and one. Wilson thought that pitch might have been low, but Lance Barrett said nope. That evens the count at 2-2.
That's a tough call for a hitter.
Yeah.
Ball sinking like that. Of course, tough call for the umpire, too, with a ball sinking like that right around the bottom of the strike zone.
Odor on the move, and the pitch is fouled down. Well, once you got to 2 strikes, Odor trying to swipe second. And he will retrace his steps. And as he's going back, he's checking across the diamond with Tony Beasley. Hernandez again ready. Odor staying put this time. And the count is full. So now with 2 outs and a full count, Odor will Get the advantage of a running jump. Wilson trying to extend this fourth inning. Delino to Shields in the on-deck circle would be next. Montero, the first baseman, playing behind Odor, so Rugnet can go ahead and take off. He's on the move. 3-2 pitch fouled away. Odor will retrace his steps. We will try it again. The Rangers doing a very good job of getting that pitch count up for Felix Hernandez. 24 pitches in the second, 17 last innings. And that's one way to combat him. Make him throw pitch after pitch after pitch and hopefully get him out very quickly. Another 3-2 with Odor on the move. Outside, ball 4. And there are 2 aboard for Delino to Shields.
No, it looked like Felix is working very carefully to Bobby Wilson. He threw him a 3-2 breaking ball that Bobby fouled off. And then got a pitch for a ball. Take a walk. Put a man in scoring position for Delino.
Bobby Wilson been just 1 for 8 against Hernandez in past matchups, but maybe there's something there that doesn't show up in the stats.
I don't know. Whatever it is, there's 2 outs and nobody on. Hit by pitch and a walk. Give the Rangers a shot. Picking up a run right here.
Delino has lined to right and struck out. Pretty nasty breaking ball right there for strike 1. Delino kind of a sheepish grin on his face. Said, oh my goodness. That's pretty good.
I didn't see that last year in the Texas League.
Chopper foul outside third, and Hernandez now with an 0-2 advantage in the count. Delino currently hitting at .264. Runners in scoring position this season exactly .264, so he's hitting the same with or without runners in second or third. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Delino matched his career high with 2 runs driven in yesterday. Had that 3-hit game. 1-2 from Hernandez. Got him swinging. No, Delino worked over by Felix Hernandez. Rangers strand a couple on a hit batter and a walk. After 3.5, 2-1 Texas.
To 1 lead, and I'm joined by a very special Ranger fan. Tell me, what is your name?
Warren.
Warren, and where are you from?
California.
From California, but you're here to watch the Rangers in Seattle, that's correct? Can you tell me what happened the last half inning with Adrian Beltre trying to throw you a baseball? What happened? Did he try to throw you a baseball and maybe a grown-up got in the way?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you handled it very well, though. Came upstairs. Well, Adrian saw that, and he told me to come and find you. And what did he give you?
The baseball.
The baseball. What was that like for you?
Fun.
Fun. And who's your favorite player?
Elvis and Beltre.
And Beltre. Was he your favorite before this or after?
After.
After? Yeah.
But they're kind of equal.
They're equal. There's nothing wrong with that. You got a Beltre jersey on, though. I mean, we do have proof he's got a Beltre jersey on. But sometimes grown-ups get in the way, and we need to make things right with the little ones. Right, guys?
You got that right, Em.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you hope that the grown-up makes it right with the young one before Adrian even has to make it right. Of course, maybe the other adult, maybe the adult had a little one of his own. You never know.
Yeah, everybody's happy. We know that.
Yep, that's all that counts.
That's the important thing. Lawrence high-fiving everybody over there.
I guess I'd be happier if I got a personal ball from Adrian.
Yeah. Cruz into right field. That's slicing into the corner, and it is foul.
Oh. That looked way fair most of the way.
Well, Cruz will make his way back to home plate after not missing that foul line by much down there. Colby Lewis will go back to work with a 2-2 count. Yeah, Tom, you're right. That was fair most of the way.
Fortunately, it was slicing right at the end. Yeah, pretty good pitch. As far as Nelly's concerned, didn't do much with it. Kobe got a second strike with it.
Now, Cruz called out on strikes his first time up there. Kobe trying to go back to that outside corner and just miss with the slider. So the count is full. Cruz leading off the fourth, to be followed by Robinson Cano. Rangers leading 2-1. They have out hit the Mariners 5-1. Cruz leans on the slider, takes it for ball 4. So the leadoff walk, that is the first free pass issued by Colby this afternoon. Brings up Cano, who grounded out to second in the second. Only hit so far this afternoon off Colby was Ketel Marte's RBI single in the third. Cano with that 267 average settles in. And takes strike one. Colby against Cano has not had the best of luck. Cano has hit .467 against Colby over the years. The 0-1 pitch coming. A little bit low. Talked about Cano and Cruz flip-flopping in the batting order. In 16 games since that occurred, Cano has hit .354. It's fouled back and out of play. Colby had him pretty well tied up. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Cano, of course, longtime Yankee second baseman. Signed that big free agent contract with the Mariners, a 10-year deal before last year. The Mariners brought him in to beef up the batting order. Found out that he couldn't really do it by himself, so he went out and got Nelly Cruz before this year.
They're going to get someone else next year.
Yeah.
2 of them couldn't do it.
Borland
Yes, sir.
doubles off Cruz and he tagged him. Pitch, spear in the line drive from Cano, turns it in to an unassisted double play.
Oh, there's a good break. Hard hit ball right at Mitch, right at the right time. Covering for holding the runner at first base. Turns 1 pitch, 1 line drive into 2 outs. And you've gotten the 2 guys you want to try to get out in the game. They're the toughest to get out, Cruz and Cano.
Yep. No bases empty now for Seth Smith.
2 times through the lineup. that Kobe's been able to navigate Cruz and Cano without any problems.
The way those guys are swinging the bat, that's doing something.
Yeah.
Smith had a ground ball to second, his first time to the plate. Colby back to him. And a roller foul. 1 ball and 1 strike. Seth Smith didn't get off to a very good start this year, but he started picking things up in the month of July. He had 288. He's gotten a little backwards though of late. Last 14 games he's hit just 143. Well, the ebbs and flows of the major league season, well, it can drive you nuts if you dwell on it too much.
It's a rare hitter who doesn't have those ebbs and flows. Prince hasn't had many of them this year. Nelly Cruz probably hasn't had many of them, but most guys do.
Smith rips one to right for a base hit.
Just most hitters are streaky hitters. You get in a good streak and stay in it for a while and cool off and stay in it for a while. Battle that all season long. Go from feeling great, the kind of streak you wonder if you're ever going to make an out, to the kind of streak you wonder if you're ever going to get another hit again. But everybody has them. Best hitters probably limit them to a 1 for 15. The rest of us probably end up hoping to limit it to a 2 for 35 or something like that. Just hope they don't come at the beginning of the year. That way, every time your name comes up on the scoreboard, it shows your average, and it's 122 or 095. It's just a little bit more embarrassing. You have it happen late in the season, you see your average go down, but not quite as bad as when it's the beginning of the season.
Yeah. A few more at bats and it doesn't fluctuate quite as much.
Yep. That's where you hear the fans going, "Hey, nice average, meat." Yeah, don't worry, I'm aware of it.
Montero, a drive to deep left field. Hamilton is stopping. That ball's gone. Jesus Montero turns the game around. A 2-run home run. The Mariners lead it 3-2.
Well, the Rangers got the double play. Hard hit ball by Cano. But then Smith hit a rope to right. And Montero got the hanging breaking ball. Looked like it was right in the center of the plate. And after the strikeout to end the game yesterday, or end that inning yesterday, he comes back and hits a hanger and puts the Mariners ahead.
Second home run of the year for Jesus Montero.
Well, that one did for Kobe was spin. Never got out there where he wanted it to.
Now Mark Trumbo, a swinging strike 1. Now that's in that danger zone. It hung, but didn't hang so high that Montero couldn't get on top of it. 1-1 now to Trumbo. Well, that is home run number 127 for the Mariners. He came in 5th in the American League in team round trippers. Good fastball. It's 1-2. Well, for Colby this year, that is the 20th home run that he's allowed. And Trumbo pokes one to right field. Long run in for Chu. Sunglasses glistening, and Shin-Chu runs it down. That'll do it. But the damage done. Jesus Montero with a 2-run home run. Mariners get 2 runs on 2 hits. Nobody left. After 4, 3-2 Seattle. 7,500 kids 13 and under will receive a Shin-Soo Choo blue batting helmet. That's sponsored by Dairy Queen. Head on over to TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS to get your tickets for the 30th and get yourself a Shin-Soo Choo batting helmet for your kids. Well, the Mariners have turned it around 3-2 now. Seattle. Ranger fan with some of the sticky treats out here. You know, big bag of cotton candy. That's pretty good. Make a mess with that in a hurry. I could. And Shin-Soo Choo starting things off, but it's a two-hopper right at Cano for out number 1. So Choo now 1 for 3 as he's retired to start the 5th. Next will be Prince Fielder. And with Prince coming up, we'll take a look at our Ford leaderboard showing you the league leaders in multiple hit games. Prince Fielder and Ian Kinsler. Kind of ironic that those two would be tied. Traded for each other. Both of them with 44. Nelson Cruz with 42 is in 3rd place in the American League.
Ian's been hot. He got his average up over 300 now last month. Got to be hitting 400 in the last month.
See the Detroit Tigers for the first time in a couple of weeks. Head on up to Comerica Park. Fielder, a pair of singles. Takes outside. So Prince now with a batting average back up to 327. He had slipped down to 2nd in the American League. Takes the pitch outside, 2-1. Prince doing a little Adrian Beltre. No, hang on now. Go. Hernandez to the line, back to the plate. 2 balls, 2 strikes. You can understand if he's going to throw the ball down there like that, that's a devastating curveball. Going about 85 miles an hour, too. 2-2.
His 2-strike approach just flicked his bat to spoil that fastball. A little bit late on it, but served the purpose.
He had that 2-strike approach yesterday on the home run. Flicked his bat and the ball jumped about 390 feet. Just outside, 3-2. Well, Fielder with 1 out trying to get aboard here in the 5th inning. Adrian Beltre will follow. Rangers have out-hit the Mariners 5-3, but Seattle with the 2-run Montero home run lead at 3-2. Chopper behind the bag at first, and Montero to the bag for the out. 2 gone. Prince retired for the first time today. Adrian Beltre was flying deep to left field and grounded to short. Will come up. I don't know which one was hit harder, the ground ball to short that almost decapitated Brad Miller out there, or the line drive that sent Seth Smith back to the padding and left. Both of them were rockets. And they both resulted in an at-bat with no hit. Try it again. This one stayed down for Brad Miller. And Felix Hernandez has his first 1-2-3 inning of the afternoon. He'll say something to Adrian Beltre as he heads back to the dugout. Halfway through the game, 3-2. Frisco Rough Riders host the Tulsa Drillers. And you can see all the action beginning at 7 p.m. on Fox Sports Southwest. So watch the Rangers take on the Twins in the afternoon. And then tune in to watch the Rough Riders drill the Drillers that night at 7 o'clock. Brad Miller starting things off for the Mariners here in the 5th inning. He takes low, and Colby has fallen behind 2 balls and no strikes. Miller had a sacrifice bunt his first time. Off the end of the bat toward right center. Coming over is Delano DeShields, cuts in front of Shin-Soo Choo to make the catch. And Miller's retired for out number 1. Now before Mike Zunino steps in, let's send it back to Dana Larson for a Mazda game break. All right, Dana, thank you. Here, Rangers trailing now by 1 to the Mariners, 3-2. And Zunino was thinking fastball and got the slider. 0-1. Zunino flied to right field his first time to the plate. Colby pulling the string a bit there too, and he's ahead 0-2.
Yeah, Zunino had a couple of breaking balls right in the center of the plate, but he's way out in front of him. He's a fastball hitter. Not a lot of minor league at-bats for Zunino, less than 400 minor league at-bats. High draft choice, college player, got to the big leagues really quick. They needed a catcher. Defensively, he's been fine. Offensively, still struggling to make solid contact. Trying to get his average up to the Mendoza line.
Colby, a long look in, reading the signs from Bobby Wilson. Now, time called. As Zunino this year, 312 at-bats coming into play this afternoon. 116 strikeouts. It's 1 every 3, better than 3 times at the plate. And 19 walks. That's not a real good walk to strikeout ratio for a hitter.
Adds up to a fairly low on base percentage.
2-2. Call strike 3. Colby painting the outside corner. Zunino got caught window shopping. 2 gone. Our Kubota power stats. Steven Strasburg back off the disabled list into the lineup yesterday, and against Colorado, about 7 innings of 1-run baseball, 3 hits, 12 strikeouts. And he went 3 for 3 at the plate himself. First game back off the DL.
Sounds like the game Zach Greinke had the other day.
Yeah.
Although he didn't pitch that well, he hit it well.
I wonder if Strasburg had the bat flip that Greinke used.
I don't know.
Ketel Marte is 1 for 2 this afternoon. Drove in his first big league run with a single back in the 3rd inning. 1 ball, 1 strike. The switch hitter up there from the left side against the right-hander Colby Lewis. Up the middle, Marte is 2 for 3. Well, the speedster, 21-year-old Ketel Marte aboard at first with a 2-out single. And Kyle Seager will come up. Mariners now with 4 hits. Rangers still out hitting them by 1, but the Mariners leading by 1. Seager 0 for 2. He has popped out twice. Once in foul ground to Adrian Beltre, once to Elvis Andrus. 1 ball, no strikes. Colby, a set at the belt. A check of first. There goes Marte. The pitch is outside. The throw is not in time. Marte able to swipe second. Well, the young man who motors along pretty well. Able to get in there with his first Major League stolen base. A lot of firsts for him today.
Yeah, he's filling an unusual role for a 21-year-old. He's played second base, shortstop, center field today.
Marte gets himself into scoring position. 2 balls and no strikes. The count to Kyle Seager. Good breaking ball from Colby Lewis. 2-1. Colby a check of second. 3 balls, 1 strike. Well, you do have first base open, but if you lose Seager, you have to deal with Nelly Cruz. That's good news, bad news, I guess. And Bobby Wilson going to go out and find out which way Colby wants to go with Seager. You want to aggressively go after him, or you want to try and make a good pitch, but if you lose him, fine. That's one thing you got to decide, though. You can't get caught in between in that kind of thinking. You won't execute whatever pitch you decide on if you're not completely sure of which way you're going. Popped him up. That is going to reach the seats, though, behind home plate, and it fills the count. Like Colby took something off that. Change up and stayed up. Now Colby working on a very comfortable afternoon here in Seattle. Temperature in the upper 70s. Very light breeze drifting from the left field corner toward right. Payoff pitch coming to Seager. Got him swinging. Came back with a sharp slider, and a couple of strikeouts in the inning. The Mariners get a base hit, but Strander running. We have finished 5 here in Seattle. It's the Mariners 3 and the Rangers 2. $100 and dinner for 2 at Sonic Drive-In. If the Ranger hits a home run during this inning, Charles Clay from Fort Worth will win $600. And if a Ranger hits a grand slam this inning, Charles is going to win $25,000. You can register at any participating Sonic restaurant. Charles, you got a real legitimate shot here. You got Moreland, Hamilton, and Andrews to face Felix Hernandez. All 3 capable of driving the ball out of the ballpark, and Mitch Moreland takes ball 1. Mitch has struck out and been out on a nice play by Robinson Cano, the second baseman. Sharply hit ground ball. Mitch 0 for 2, currently hitting at .293. That is out of play to the left. 1-1.
We'd love to make Felix work this inning. He's at 86 pitches. Have to make him throw 20 pitches, so he's done after 6, so he doesn't come out and pitch a 7th inning. Iwakuma was able to keep his pitch count low enough to get through 7 innings.
Mitch, a couple of foul balls now down in the hole at 1 ball, 2 strikes. Yeah, and that's important. Well, you get in the middle part of the game, and the Seattle bullpen, as we mentioned, has not been the best part of their pitching staff this year. If you get to them earlier, then you've got a real legitimate shot.
Yeah, if you can get at least 1 inning. Saw Rodney and Carson Smith the other night. Both of those guys were throwing great. But if you get before the 8th inning, then you've got a chance to get some of the other guys. Not that they're bad pitchers, but they're not Felix Hernandez, that's for sure.
Right. 2-2 to Mitch. Now 3-2. Felix, who had his first 1-2-3 inning in the 5th, has run the count full to Moreland. Mitch trying to get aboard to start this 6th inning. Josh Hamilton will follow. Rangers trailing by 1, looking to win 2 out of 3 and kick this road trip off on the right foot. Fly ball to left. Smith circling around, makes the grab for out number 1. Moreland going the other way and comes up a bit short. So 1 away. Here's Hamilton. Josh is grounded to second, fly to center. The ball he hit to center, he just missed. He got under it and hit a towering fly ball out there. I mentioned Josh has not had good success over his career against Felix Hernandez. 11 for 67 now. That's about a 160 average. Mariners going to that overshift with the left-handed hitting Hamilton at the plate. And Hernandez leaves a couple of breaking balls high and outside. 2-0. He put Josh in a count where he might look for a fastball and reasonably expect to get one. 2-0 might be that count. Got one and ripped it. Cano had that come right up into his glove. He was not sticking his nose down in there.
Another hard hit ball for an out.
Boy, it was.
He did just what you were saying, Buzz. He got ahead in the count, got a pitch to hit, drilled it, just didn't get it up in the air or find a hole.
Cano's got great hands, but he wanted nothing to do with that ground ball.
No.
That found his glove. No, 2 away. And here's Elvis, who is 1 for 2. Elvis had a hard hit single in the 2nd inning. Tapped out to 3rd in the 4th. 256 the average as he takes ball 1. Elvis now 2 for 10 in this series against Seattle. Went 1 for 5 with a walk yesterday in that 11 inning Ranger win. A ball and a strike. Five pitches now for the King. Felix Hernandez still just 29 years of age. Made his major league debut almost exactly 10 years ago. Exactly 10 years ago to this day, he made his Safeco Field debut. 19 at the time. Two-one pitch to Elvis. Seager across the diamond, and that'll do it. So Hernandez now has retired 7 straight Rangers. 1, 2, 3 and out. After 5.5, it's the Mariners 3 and the Rangers 2. 18th. The Rangers take on the same Seattle Mariners. Visit TexasRangers.com for tickets or call 972-RANGERS. Make sure to come on out for Dollar Hot Dog Night. Nelson Cruz leading off the Seattle 6th inning. Cruz has walked and struck out against Colby. It's a towering drive to left field. Hamilton is watching this one go goodbye. That was indeed a Cruz missile. Launched into the Ranger bullpen. It's a 4-2 Seattle lead. And Nelson Cruz with home run number 33.
First game of the series, the Mariners hit 3 solo home runs. Today it's been a solo shot and a 2-run shot. Oh, the fastball in. Now he got it. Now he looked like he might have gotten underneath it, which he did get underneath it.
Yeah.
It just still went far enough. Well, good swing at a fastball that Kobe got in, but Nelly was ready for it.
Cano swinging to the first 2 pitches, down on the count 0-2. And for Cruz, that is the 9th straight game that he has had an extra base hit, and that is one off the Mariner record. Ken Griffey Jr. had 10 straight games with an extra base hit. Nelson Cruz, boy, he is on some kind of streak. 19-game hitting streak. And Cano, 3 pitches, and we'll see you later. He has gone on strikes. Colby with his 4th strikeout of the afternoon. 1 away for Seth Smith.
Good breaking ball. Hard slider down and in. And the first time up in this ball game for Nelly Cruz, Kobe threw a lot of pitches away, then came in and caught the inside corner for a called strike 3. Cruz, I'm sure, aware of what's happened to him in other at-bats. Didn't let Kobe get that fastball in on him that time. We talked about Nelly. When you're swinging the bat the way he is, hitting .325 and been above .300 the whole season, he's a better hitter right now than he's been. He's always been a good power hitter and a solid hitter. But now he's a .300 hitter, which means he's tougher to pitch to. He can hit the inside pitch, go the other way with the outside pitch. He's still hitting with power, but it appears right now he's a better hitter than he's ever been.
Smith grounds out. Now Montero with 2 outs. Yeah, I agree. And I don't think I've seen Cruz as consistent from at bat to at bat as we've seen him in this series. I mean, he looks like he's really locked in and has been apparently most of the year.
Yeah, he's been locked in all year, and right now he's in one of those hot streaks, 20-game hot streak where he just have a real tough time pitching.
Montero way up in the air to right field. Chu fighting the sun makes the catch, and that'll do it. But Nelson Cruz leads off the 6th with his 33rd home run of the year, a moonshot to left field. We'll go to the 7th, 4-2 Seattle. the RBI double with 2 outs. That drove home Elvis for the first run of the ballgame. Odor with the RBI, but then Jesus Montero, a 2-run home run in the 4th, gave the Mariners a 3-2 lead. They added to that as Nelson Cruz led off the 6th with his 33rd home run of the year, a blast into the bullpen in left field. 4-2 Seattle, and that's where we stand as Felix Hernandez goes back out to the mound to start the top of the 7th. Hernandez will face Rougned Odor, Bobby Wilson, and Delino DeShields. Rangers have not had a hit since the 3rd inning. They've not had a base runner since the 4th. The first pitch to Odor makes it 0-1. Rougned 1 for 1. Hit by a pitch his last time. Had that RBI double we showed you. Driving in his 39th run of the year in the 2nd. Good breaking ball. That is in for strike 2. Felix Hernandez right at 100 pitches with this next offering. Looked like the Rangers are going to be able to get him out earlier. When he was working in the 3rd inning. It made him work in the 2nd and the 3rd. Line to left field. Smith makes the grab for out number 1.
Nice swing by Rougned, too. 94-mile-an-hour fastball with some movement on it. Hit it right on the button. Line shot to left field. Rangers have hit 4 or 5 hard hit outs against Hernandez today. Ball up and away, top of the strike zone. Still hit it well.
Yeah.
Got to be swinging well to hit that pitch from that pitcher that hard.
1 gone. Here's Bobby Wilson. Wilson has walked and grounded out. Season average from both Tampa Bay and the Rangers, 194. Hernandez, first pitch to him. Center field. Marte now battling the sun himself. And coming over is Cruz. He can't get there. It falls. And into second base is Bobby Wilson. Well, Marte, with not a lot of experience in center field, played 4 games in the minor leagues out there. And he never really came close to the ball. Cruz had the best shot at it from his right field vantage point.
He tried his right hand. He tried his glove. Had sunglasses on top of his hat, it looked like. I was putting them on.
No, that's going to be a double for Bobby Wilson. He's now had a hit in every start that he's had for the Rangers. And it also takes the Rangers back to the top of the order for Delino DeShields. Delino has struck out twice and lined to right field. 0 for 3 here this afternoon against Felix Hernandez. .263 average for the Ranger leadoff man. One ball and 1 strike.
Bright sunshine out there, but look at his face. No sunglasses. And look at his hat. He's got the sunglasses on top of his hat. He's got the sunglasses on now.
I think that might be pointed out to him when he gets back.
I don't know why you would bring the sunglasses out there in this sun if you weren't going to wear them. Someone might ask him that question when he gets back to the bench.
One and 2 to Delino. Yeah, I think several people might ask him that.
You know, occasionally you'll see a guy go out to the outfield without his sunglasses, realize he needs them, and then call for them.
Right.
But man, if you've got them on your hat and it's that sunny, this is a tough sun field out there too.
Kyle Seager, you saw the third baseman that subscribes to that. Kind of the cool look to have your glasses on top of your hat.
I got to think as long as he's been around several years playing third base in this ballpark, he must realize he doesn't need them.
Yeah.
At third base looking up. I guess that is what you would assume. Marte, young player, playing center field.
Lino not able to check his swing. He has gone on strikes for the third time. That's out number 2. It'll bring up Shin-Soo Choo.
It's only the 4th strikeout for Hernandez, but he's gotten to Lino 3 times. Maybe a long ball right here. Choo's swinging the bat pretty well today, too.
Yep, 1 for 3, and he's hit the ball sharply on the ground a couple of the times. Bobby Wilson the lead from second. And Choo takes low and inside for ball 1. Shin-Soo a 240 average as he faces Felix Hernandez. Choo now has reached base in all 15 starts that he's had since the All-Star break, either by a hit or a walk he's reached. 1 ball, 1 strike. With runners in scoring position this year, Shin-Soo Choo has not had as much success as he would expect. 1 and 2.
Ball still throwing hard, 94 miles an hour with his 109th pitch.
Yeah, and it's funny, Tom. All of a sudden he gets a runner in scoring position that bumps it up 2 or 3 miles an hour.
Yep.
It's not funny if you're a hitter.
No.
1 and 2 with 2 out. Got him swinging. And Hernandez, the biggest show of emotion you'll ever see from him on the field. No runs, 1 hit, 1 left. Will take the stretch in Seattle, 4-2 Mariners. And now we will join the public address announcer as he introduces God Bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask you now to please join us in honoring our great country with the singing of God Bless America. Please welcome back Keith Taylor.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Of the seventh inning, Rangers trailing 4-2, and Mark Trumbo leads things off by taking ball one. Trumbo has reached on an error and scored the first Seattle run. That was back in the third inning. Fourth inning, he flied to right field. 0 for 2 this afternoon. Colby completely befuddling Mark Trumbo with that swing. Pretty good slider down and away.
Looked like a chip shot.
Trumbo bound and determined he wasn't going to have a weak swing at it, so he went ahead and swung and still missed it by quite a bit.
And Trumbo is definitely not afraid to expand the strike zone occasionally. Only walked 11 times, 21 times all season long, 350 at bats.
Mitch Moreland picks that right off his shoe top down there at first. One gone. And we'll take a look at the upcoming schedule brought to you by Progressive. Rangers finishing up here this afternoon in Seattle. We'll enjoy an off day in the Twin Cities tomorrow and then take on the Twins Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday afternoon. Coming back home to take on the Rays and the Mariners. Short trip, last road trip in August to Detroit for 4 games. And then finish off the month with Toronto and Baltimore at Globe Life Park. One out here in the bottom of the 7th. Brad Miller is 0 for 1 with a sacrifice. 1 ball, no strikes. Colby still under 90 pitches here in the 7th inning. He has been very good this afternoon. The long ball has hurt him. And Miller rips one to right, but foul. 1-1. Colby's allowed 5 hits, but 2 of them left the ballpark. A 2-run home run by Montero and Nelson Cruz solo home run. That has done the damage for the most part. The 1-1 to Miller. 2-1. Miller showing some pretty good pop this year. 9 home runs. Two and two. Matter of fact, Miller among American League shortstops, trailing Marcus Semien and Carlos Correa in the long ball category. Colby's 2-2 pitch. Just missed the outside corner, 3-2. Well, Miller, the 8th place hitter, trying to get aboard with 1 out. Mike Zunino, the catcher, will follow. Payoff pitch on the way. Some action out in the Ranger bullpen in support of Colby Lewis. We'll show you that in just a second. Another 3-2 pitch coming to Miller. Call strike 3. Miller angrily whips around and says something to Lance Barrett, and then thinks better of it and heads back to the dugout. 5th strikeout for Colby Lewis.
Well, a hitter's never going to think this pitch is a strike, but it's right there, perfect part of the strike zone. Colby gets the call. Miller quite disgusted with the call.
Yeah, that he was. No, 2 outs, bases empty, and Mike Zunino hits a towering fly ball to deep left center field. DeShields back at the wall and makes the catch. Right in front of the 376 marker, Zunino, a long fly out, and it's a 1-2-3 inning for Colby Lewis. After 7 complete, Mariners by 2. in the 8th inning, and Felix Hernandez out of the ball game after 7 innings. The 38-year-old right-hander Fernando Rodney has come in to take over on the hill, his 50th appearance of the year. Fernando Rodney, that 4-4 mark, league hitting .256 against him. Rodney, a bit erratic, so he was removed from the closer's role. He has 16 saves this year. Carson Smith has taken over as the 9th inning guy, but Rodney on, and we saw him already once in this series and really threw the ball well yesterday in that ball game. Worked an inning, gave up a hit, and had a strikeout.
Rodney looked pretty much like he did as the closer. He had a 95, 96 mile an hour fastball with his changeup.
Austin Jackson into the ball game now to take over for Marte in center field. So apparently the sunglasses on the hat didn't do much for Ketel Marte's chance of staying in the ball game. Prince Fielder leading things off against Rodney. And the changeup floats outside for ball 1. Talking to some of the Rangers after yesterday's game, they said, you know, the book they had on Rodney of late was that he was really having trouble throwing strikes consistently, but that wasn't the case yesterday. Said they were very surprised by his command. Things can change in a hurry in baseball, and they apparently had for Fernando Rodney. But he's fallen behind Prince Fielder here. 2 balls, no strikes. Fielder 2 for 3 today. And ball 3 is high.
Fans are already getting restless. Yep. They're booing already. It counts only 3-0.
Inside, outside, high. 3 balls, no strikes.
This one should be probably down and away to complete the symmetry of the 4 pitches. Oh, man.
It was down.
That's not a strike. Come on, Lance.
Start suggesting from the bench that it's not automatic to call that a strike.
Yeah.
3-1. And ball 4. Well, the leadoff walk puts Fielder aboard and does get the natives a little restless. Folks, on Tuesday, August 25th, Rangers will feature a throwback giveaway. The first 15,000 fans, ages 14 and older, will get a Giovanni Gallardo powder blue t-shirt thanks to Dr. Pepper, Albertsons, and Tom Thumb. Visit TexasRangers.com or call 972-RANGERS to secure your tickets. Here's Beltre, and Rodney able to get a strike at the bottom of the zone. Beltre 0 for 3, a couple of ground outs, a fly ball to left field today. Rodney back to the plate. This is with a changeup. 1-1. Rodney came in yesterday and faced the same hitters that he's facing today for the first 2 of them. Fielder and Beltre. That ball is just a little bit foul.
That's an Ian Kinsley foul ball right there. Thought he was the only one that could hit one way back up there.
Man.
Just a little bit too quick.
That might have done Ian proud. Watch where he hits that thing.
That's where that pitch was to Correa. Hit for a home run in Texas last week.
That's right. 1-2 to Beltre. Did he go? No, he did not. As Dale Scott emphatically motions at first. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Yesterday, Fielder flied out to center field. So did Adrian Beltre against Fernando Rodney. This is a little bit different today. The leadoff walk here in the 8th inning. Right center field. Cruz into the gap. Able to make the grab for out number 1. Fielder back to first. Looked good for a moment coming off the bat, but it hung up. And Cruz able to close ground on it. No, 1 gone for Mitch Moreland. Moreland came up as a pinch hitter against Rodney and singled to center field. He pinch hit for Mike Napoli yesterday, had the base hit, takes a low strike here. 0-1.
The second one, the one to Prince was down there as well.
And Lance Barrett telling the Ranger dugout, no more. Don't want to hear any more about the ball strike calls.
They made a deal with him. Don't call it a ball anymore, and we won't argue anymore.
And that is going to do it. Looked like Jeff Bannister has been thrown out. Or at least Jeff's coming out to talk to Lance Barrett and get his money's worth if he was the one that got ejected. And I think he was. I think Jeff's a little perturbed with the height of some of those strikes. Might have suggested they were a little bit low.
Yeah,
you kind of get that from.
I would kind of agree with him on a couple of those calls.
Yep.
We don't generally like to get on umpires. It's a tough job. Ball's going 98 miles an hour. It's sinking around the knees. It's tough to make those calls. It looked like the last couple of balls down there looked like they might have been just a hair low.
And that pitch in at the knees for a strike.
Well, if I'm Rodney, that's the only place I'm throwing the ball.
No kidding. If you can.
Yeah, can get it down there.
0-2 to Mitch. Fielder at first, not being held closely. Little looper to center. That's going to fall for a base hit. Fielder to second will stop there. And Moreland, for the second straight day, has a hit against Fernando Rodney. 2 on with 1 out. Josh Hamilton coming up. Well, folks, let's take a look at today's selection for our strongest fan photo. And today's selection comes to us from Becca. Becca, thank you very much. And if you folks would like to tweet your strongest fan photo, just use hashtag Southwest Data Strong Fan. Your photo might be selected to be aired during one of our upcoming telecasts. It's brought to you by the good folks at T-Mobile. The tying runs are on base for Josh Hamilton, who has made a habit lately of coming up with the big run-scoring hits for the Rangers. Hamilton today 0 for 3. Takes that changeup and stays high for ball 1. Josh, in yesterday's game against Fernando Rodney, went down swinging. Adam Rosales off the Ranger bench to pinch run for Mitch Moreland at first base. 1-1. Fielder at second, Rosales trailing at first. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Let's see if Josh can do what he did in that 11th inning yesterday after a couple of wild swings.
Yeah, try to counteract that changeup. Those were good ones too. Well located right at the lower part of the outside corner.
1-2 pitch. And then he comes back with 96 or 97 or 98, just depending on what gun you want to look at. It was pretty quick.
Josh's swing was pretty quick to be able to foul that one off after 2 changeups.
Defensive alignment for the Mariners. Around to the right, 1-2. Got him swinging. Came back with another changeup. That is devastating. Tough pitching. Hamilton gone, 2 away, and Elvis Andrus coming up. Oh, look at the movement on that thing too. That changeup, not just off speed, but running away from the left-handed hitter. Elvis 1 for 3 with a single and a run scored. That came back in the second. This pitch chopped foul over the Ranger dugout. It is 0-1. Elvis in his career 4 for 11 against Fernando Rodney. He's also had 4 walks. Rangers with the tying runs on base here in the 8th inning. 2 outs, the 0-1 pitch. Saw the Ranger bullpen with Jake Diekman and Sam Freeman, a pair of left-handers throwing.
Boy, Jake threw 2 innings yesterday. Struck out 4 guys. They didn't have a prayer hitting him yesterday.
2-1 to Elvis. No, you're right. That's as badly overmatched you can see.
Second inning when he punched out 3, they definitely were overmatched. I usually hope Elvis can get a high changeup right around the knees, right out over the plate, get out in front of one, tear it into left field somewhere.
Sharply hit ball, and going to second the short way. Seager gets the force. That'll do it for the Rangers. Rodney able to work around a single and a walk. Rangers strand 2 after 7.5. Still 4-2 Mariners.
If they want to come back in this one, 4-2 Seattle as we head to the bottom of the 8th here at Safeco Field. This wraps up a 3-game series here in Seattle. Day off tomorrow. We head to Minnesota where the Rangers and Twins will play a 3-game series. Prince Fielder and Brian Dozier, a couple of the hot hitters as we head into this one. There you can see the numbers. It's a 7 o'clock first pitch here on Fox Sports Southwest on Tuesday evening. We hope to see you there, and thanks to the folks at AT&T U-verse for getting us ready.
Into center field, long run in for Delino DeShields, and he is able to secure that off the bat of Logan Morrison, who entered the ball game defensively last half inning and hitting in Ketel Marte's spot. That's how the 8th inning begins for Colby Lewis. So Morrison on a fly ball is out number 1. Next will be Kyle Seager. Seager today 0 for 3. He has popped out twice and struck out against Colby Lewis. Mariners with just 5 hits this afternoon, but 2 of them being home runs have produced 3 of the 4 runs for the Mariners. And Seager hits one sharply but pulls it foul for strike 1. 4-2, Seattle on top. Colby Lewis still under 100 pitches here in the 8th inning. He got 1 out in the 8th, and this will be his 97th pitch of the afternoon. So a very good job by Colby.
Yep, solid outing. Gave up the 2 home runs and then the unearned run, 2 base error on the pop-up that Bobby Wilson wasn't able to handle. Colby's worked quickly, thrown a lot of quality pitches.
And Seager able to check his swing on that slider. First time today he hasn't offered at that pitch. 2 balls and a strike. Ranger infield in an extreme overshift against Seager. Elvis Andrews well over on the first base side of second. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Rougned Odor playing the rover out there in right field. Colby into the wind, pitch number 100 of the afternoon. It is just inside 3-2. So Seager trying to get aboard with 1 out here in the 8th inning. Nelson Cruz, Mariner right fielder, he is going to be next. Colby with a payoff pitch. Yanked foul. Rangers opened the scoring in the 2nd inning. Put 1 on the 2nd. Scored another in the 3rd. Mariners answered with 1 in the bottom of the 3rd, then 2 in the 4th, and 1 in the 6th. Colby started into the wind and thought better of it. So he'll recycle and start over again. Another 3-2. Got him swinging.
This might be as bad as I've seen Seager look in a game against the Rangers. A couple of pop-ups, a couple of strikeouts.
That is strikeout number 6. And Nelly Cruz coming to the plate. Our AT&T Uverse Rewind will take you back to the 6th inning. Cruz got a fastball inside, and he turned on it. He hit that thing a mile high and about a half mile wide. Nelly Cruz with home run number 33. And depending on what Mike Trout is doing this afternoon with the Angels, Nelly either tied with Trout. Trout is not home for the Major League lead. And Trout, as we understand, 0 for 4 today. So Nelly tied for the lead right now, and he hits one right back to Colby. On to first, that'll do it. So a nice job by Colby Lewis. 8 strong innings. But he and the Rangers trail the Mariners 4-2 as the Rangers come up in the 9th. Rangers down 4-2. Carson Smith, young man from Midland, Texas, on now, his 50th appearance of the year. He is 11 for 13 in saved chances. He has taken over the closer's role, as we mentioned, for Fernando Rodney. Saw Carson here on Friday night, picked up his 11th save. Carson spent his college years down at San Marcos, went to Texas State University. 2010, 2011. He was the 8th round selection by the Mariners in that 2011 June draft. Made his major league debut last year in 9 ball games with Seattle. So on here, Rougned Odor will start things off. Rangers need a base runner to bring that tying run to home plate. Smith, kind of a herky-jerky motion, fires strike one.
That thing gets there quicker than you think it's going to get there, it looks like.
Odor 1 for 2, an RBI double in the second. He was hit by a pitch and fly to left field. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Buzz, I got a quick shout out that I forgot. The Calhoun family was here at the ball game from Dallas. Brought us up some nice treats before the game. Met all of them. Thank you very much to the Calhoun family. Get by him.
It did. Fielded by Morrison. The throw not in time. Odor able to beat it out, and the Rangers do indeed get the tying run to home plate as Odor gets the infield single.
It worked like a perfect drag bunt. All it had to accomplish was get by the pitcher. If Smith is able to snare that ball, he could probably run right to the bag himself. But once he missed it, it appeared that Odor beat the play to first base. They're checking, and I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, they're going to have him look at it. Lloyd McClendon telling him to hold things up, and then he finally motioned to Dale Scott, the crew chief down there at first, that need to take a look at that one. Well, McClendon, I guess, figuring at this point in time, the 9th inning,
might as well give it a try.
No sense hanging on to that challenge.
If he's safe, maybe they'll miss it.
And tough to tell there. Again, we're looking for clear and convincing evidence that the call was incorrect.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can call any of that clear and convincing yet. Well, they will take a look back at it in New York and see what they think. Again, the call on the field is safe, so it would take something clear and convincing to overturn that. And Odor feeling like he beat it out fairly easily. Just don't.
I don't see it.
It's going to be tough to have an angle where you get all of the perspectives coming into play, where you have the ball getting in the glove and the foot hitting the bag or not hitting the bag at that time. And they're showing a couple of different angles up on the scoreboard, getting on the folks here.
Couldn't tell when it went. Couldn't tell when it went in the glove for sure up there, could you?
Not from the shot behind the first baseman. And that's the one that the fans see here in the ballpark. And you know, Odor's foot had not hit the bag.
No. Got to keep it the way it is, guys.
You know, they're taking plenty of time on this one back in New York. The replay command center back there looking at the various angles. They'll blow up some of those angles and I guess put some different angles together, time them up so they sync them up so they give you a different viewpoint. Meanwhile, Rougned down there at first base, and Mike Napoli had got his helmet and a bat, and he's in the on-deck circle. And Napoli hoping to come up as a pinch hitter with the tying run at home plate. And again, coming down the first baseline, tough to tell when the foot hits it. You can tell when the ball goes in the glove from that angle, but hard to tell exactly when Rougned's foot hit the bag in relation to where the ball was. That lack of, I guess, definitive angle that we've been able to see anyway is what's causing the delay here looking at it. Ball in the glove there. Foot on the bag there. Well, that's what umpires have to do. They have to decide those things, and we've got a decision coming. And the is safe.
Good call, guys.
I would imagine that's one of those calls that stands, not definitive.
Right.
Not definitive an answer either way, but the call on the field stands, and that gets the tying run to home plate for the Rangers. Mike Napoli will be the pinch hitter for Bobby Wilson. So Napoli, in his first game back with the Rangers yesterday, got him from on a trade with the Boston Red Sox. Nap up. The first pitch is high and tight, a breaking ball that didn't break. The Napoli this year a .205 average, 13 home runs, 40 RBI, and providing extra pop coming off the Ranger bench, and that's exactly what the Rangers had hoped for, as some pop against left-handed pitching, and also that pinch hitter like in this situation, where one swing of the bat can, in this case, tie the ball game. Napoli an 0 for 2 yesterday. Inside corner. Napoli not thrilled with Lance Barrett's call.
That's a tough call, too. It's one thing if it's down low and it's close to the plate, but that's close to being high and inside.
A ball and 2 strikes. Smith ready. In the air to right field. Cruz has this one measured. One gone. Well, Napoli flies out. Now back to the top of the order for Delino DeShields. DeShields 0 for 4 today. Struck out the last 3 times that he faced Felix Hernandez. So he is particularly happy that Hernandez is out of the ball game.
Well, if Seager stays back where he is, it'd be a good time to drop a bunt right down the third baseline.
Delino representing the tying run. Rougned Odor drawing a throw at first. Mariners leading at 4-2. Rangers making some noise though here in the 9th inning. They have the top of the order, facing Carson Smith with 1 out. Line foul down the right side, back into the seats. 0-1. Delino back in. Along with the strikeouts, DeShields is lined to right field this afternoon. .262 average. 0-2. Carson Smith, some serious sink on that fastball when he gets it down there.
He's tough. Tough to pick up, tough stuff to hit. That's why he's pitched 44 innings, struck out 58 batters.
Now, Smith was the Southland Conference Pitcher of the Year back in 2010. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Although I'm not sure I could watch him pitch very often and make my shoulder hurt. Boy. Odor stepping his lead from first. 1-2 pitch to DeShields. Call strike 3. Smith got the front door with that slider, and DeShields caught looking. 2 gone for Shin-Soo Choo. Choo 1 out of 4 today. Had a single back in the 3rd inning and scored a run. Odor not being held at first. He's on the move. And the first pitch to Choo is in at the knee. Defensive indifference allowing Odor to get to second. Crowd here in Safeco Field on their feet. All back. Nothing, and to the count. Carson Smith, 25-year-old, trying to get his 12th save in 14 opportunities. Shin-Soo Choo standing between him and that save. Inside it hit him. I think. Yeah, it did. So the Rangers now have the tying runs on, and Prince Fielder is coming up.
He just held on to that breaking ball a little bit too long. Hit him right in the foot. Pretty good speed on the bases. And a guy with extra base power at the plate. And a 2-run ball game.
Yeah, Lloyd McClendon making a personal managerial move or trip to the mound. I think Lloyd might have a message for Carson Smith and company. The entire infield gathered for the Mariners, and Glendon didn't want to have anything lost in translation, so he's out there to deliver the message himself. Visit finished as Lance Barrett, the home plate umpire, went out to break up that party. Well, here's Fielder. Fielder an opportunity now with the tying runs on base in this ball game to at least get the Rangers even. One swing of the bat, he could turn this thing around. Prince is 2 for 3 today. Singled in each of his first 2 times to the plate. Last time up, walked. That was leading off the 8th. Carson Smith sets at the letters. First pitch grounded out to second. Cano has it on to first, and that will do it. Carson Smith able to get his 12th save of the year in 14 opportunities. Mariners finish off the series by getting the better of the Rangers here this afternoon, 4-2, and they win the series 2-1. Well, the Rangers, after winning in yesterday's ball game, couldn't complete the series win. Felix Hernandez wins again against the Rangers. He has turned things around in his times out against the Rangers of late. Rangers had his number up until this year, but he is 3-0 this year against the Rangers, and Felix Hernandez gets the win. So we will take a timeout. We'll come back to Safeco Field with more right after this on Fox Sports Southwest.